welcome to the Vigilate Dialogues. I'm your host, Shaina Smith, welcoming you to the National Boardroom. Tonight we're continuing our conversation about culture and history in the Virgin Islands. And with me I have as guests, no stranger to the dialogues, even though we still debated when you were here, my good friend, Cromwell Edju En Ka Smith. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, peace and blessings, my sister.
How are you?
I'm good, I'm good.
Good.
And peace and blessings to everyone out in the viewing, in television land. Yes, it's a pleasure for me to be here hanging out with you tonight.
And I know, right? This is like, you're always on radio, so if you get a chance to see the face behind the voice.
It's true.
All right, so we've been talking about Virgin Islands history and culture. I've actually been on your program, now you're on mine, to continue the conversation. And we got the survey results back, at least the initial report. I still have to enter some final ones. And it's very interesting.
You had a chance to analyze the data?
Yes, I looked at the data. And it's going to be an interesting conversation tonight. So for those that want to join into the conversation, you can call us at 499-7815, 499-7815. Okay, so we had a 10-question survey. We started off talking about what's your age. So we just did some demographics. So majority of the persons that answered were between the ages of 31 to 60, female, and over 75% were Virgin Islanders, either by birth or descent. And
75%?
Yeah.
More than 75%?
More than 75%
were Virgin Islanders.
were Virgin Islanders that answered the questions, which I found, which is kind of the twist. So stick a pin in that aspect
and
of it.
between the ages of
31 to 60.
Okay, no,
and
that's
female.
That's some interesting
right there, right? Okay, good. So we have the demographics as far as who answered the survey. So question 4, on a scale of 1 to 5, rate your knowledge of local history, 5 being the highest. So 53% said moderate, which was a 3, and the next highest was number 4, which was high. So over 75% said that they had either moderate to high knowledge of local history, right? And then another question was rate your level of national pride, and over 90% of them said that, you know, they have moderate to very high national pride. Okay, note, remember now, so this is females 31 to 60 Virgin Islanders. So question 7 now is where we start to try to dig into the problem. And the question was, do you think we're losing our Virgin Islands culture? What do you think was the majority answer?
Of course, the majority answer was yes. We think we are losing our Virgin Islands culture.
But then why would we say we think we're losing it if we have good national pride and good levels of knowledge of Virgin Islands history?
That's the interesting question there. We would say that perhaps, and this is of course is a speculation. We would say that because we don't really know what the Virgin Islands history truly is, or Virgin Islands culture.
So we don't know what we know.
Well, I think we might think that a knowledge of the culture is knowing the culture, or knowing the history of the culture is knowing the culture, or history is culture. And when we talk about what culture is, we usually talk about the arts.
Yeah.
We relegate culture to the arts,
music.
to the music, the food, dance, and so on, and dress. But when it comes to the values, the way we lived, and our behavior, the human social behavior during the times of the Virgin Islands life, as we know it, as we knew it, I don't think we know that very much about it. I mean, that's my speculation.
Okay.
And
well,
I think, and I'm attributing those statistics to their view.
Okay, so we asked them why they thought so. So the choices we gave were migration of Virgin Islanders to other countries. And by the way, they could check as many as they thought applied. So migration of Virgin Islanders to other countries, that was 47%. Immigration of other nationalities into the Virgin Islands was 52%. Virgin Islanders choosing to practice another culture, 52%. persons don't have enough knowledge of local history or cultural traditions was 79%.
That's a high percentage.
A high percentage.
Right there. Yeah.
And under the other, they could basically submit their own comments. And some of these are very interesting. So the highest one was persons not having enough knowledge or culture is why we think we're losing it. And I think it may be in terms of a generational thing, which is going to come out in some of these comments. So I'm going to read a couple and let me get your thoughts on them. So the first one was, many persons are born from mothers and fathers of other nationalities, and the children are not connected to the culture or the nationality, only the culture of money and vanity, and take what you can get.
Well, I think that we need to have a discussion at some point as to what culture truly is. And at one point, I had attempted to research what culture is and try to come up with a broad, general,
like a definition.
Encompassing definition of what culture really is. And I got stuck halfway somewhere in the middle, and I didn't really pick it back up again. But I don't know that we know what culture is. And because when we talk about outside influence into our culture, we usually talk about migration patterns. We usually talk about people coming from other Caribbean countries, and
as well as we traveling abroad, living abroad for a season and then coming back home.
Right. But when I look at our behavior and the values that we have adopted, we didn't have to go anywhere. Those of us who didn't go away, those of us who went away picked up on American culture, mostly because we mostly went to America.
Yeah.
But those who stayed still had the same culture. They still picked up the same American values of individualism, of competition, of greed and selfishness, and you know, and the whole materialist value and views and aggressive behavior towards getting what I can get for, as much as I can get for myself, accumulation of things, and so on. So so it wasn't because we went to America, we didn't come back with no monopoly on American culture. And people come from the Caribbean to the BVI, they come with the same set of behavioral patterns that we have who went away and who didn't go away. So and I look at, when I examine the situation, I notice, of course, that we have American and European culture continuously being proselytized or projected and touted and promoted. Thank you. Promoted through the mass media, which is television, radio, music, magazines, all those things. So no matter where you go, no matter where you went, no matter where you've been, that culture is ever present.
Or rather, would we say that lifestyle now?
That way of life.
That way of life is what has become, we have adopted.
Which to me is the culture. Because when you start looking, and I made some notes here.
And again, if you want to call in and make your contribution, the number is 499-7815.
Yeah. I made some notes here about culture as I knew it before the advent of television, say like prior to 1964.
Okay.
Right?
That's when we started to get power.
When tourism, when we change over from agriculture-based economy to a tourist or service-based economy, and an influx of money and visitors and materialism, and you know, that coming in, I think it was around that period in the early 60s. Prior to that, right? I growing up as a kid.
Okay, I think we have a call. So just before you start, caller, go ahead. Welcome to the dialogues.
Yeah, good evening, Shaina.
Caller, could you speak up?
Hello, Shaina.
Go ahead.
Yeah, on that topic of culture, and this is just my personal opinion. I see culture in three categories, and as I said, this is just my personal opinion. I see ancestral culture the culture that we had, our dishes and what have you. Then I see the social culture, and I also see political culture. And what affects us most, in the Virgin Island is the social culture. Well, we don't last the ancestral culture because no persons no longer cook on coal pattern and kind of thing. And what we don't really realize is the political culture. And I'll give an example of a political culture. We will make reference to the airport at Beef Island. What's the name of the airport at Beef Island? T.B. Airport. But people don't know who T.B. is. We make reference to H.L. Stout College, but people don't know who Stout really is. And I'll give you another political culture example. And again, it's just my opinion. We just had a minister of culture, the most recent one. He gave us a national dress and a national song. But a lot of us don't know much about the political culture of the territory. And as I said, the most conflict we have in the territory now is the social culture. We don't like this body because I mean from Tatola, and not to shift the topic, but a lot of the slogans and the cliches are just passed off on the Black Caribbean people, where the white folk could come in and do what they want in the territory. So that's just my opinion about culture. As I said, to me, culture, you look at it from the ancestral perspective, what we did in the past, like, the tending of the cattle, the fishing, the boat building, that nobody talks about that. And then you have, as I said, the social culture, which is very complex because you have a virgin and a child with parents from outside of the territory. And then we have our political culture, which to me is very, very important if we to give honor to who honor is due. All right?
Thank you.
Cool.
He gave us a mouthful. I think one of the things, though, I'll start with in terms of what he's talking about is where we use culture and history interchangeably. And we need to make sure that we're clear as far as, knowing about our political history. Right. Is probably, would be the correct way to look at it. But we understand
and
our
political behavior
yeah.
in terms of politics.
Yeah, over a period of time. Yeah. So our history is basically, a recording of what happened over a period of time. And culture actually evolves over the history of
culture actually
people.
Is our behavior. The things, the activities we engage in, the values we had, the thoughts,
our perspective and our social values. And the whole thing of, as the country developed, which is basically where you are about to start, to say that, post-emancipation, there was a certain lifestyle that was in existence. And now, after a period of time, the development of the country started to shift. And this is where now we see our lifestyle or culture started to change and lean towards more American or European trends. Yeah. Okay, so let's hear what happening.
That's where I was going. Post-emancipation, just after slavery, the plantation era, we interestingly enough, we had maintained a considerable amount of our behavior patterns from our African ancestors. Yes, we were forced into some aspects of European behavior, and the aspects of behavior that we were forced in, that we adopted was one of mistrust of each other and competition with each other. And I think that was a necessary brainwashing step, I like to call it, to control us and to maintain the dominance over over us, our ancestors, our enslaved ancestors. Yeah.
And I think that's such a key point there, just before you continue, in terms of understanding the sociology. Because even in class where we're learning about you know, after emancipation came, there were a couple of years of apprenticeship. And then basically after that, once the planters didn't see any economic value, they moved on to other Caribbean islands, or they went back to Britain. And we were left to basically fend for ourselves. Yeah. And that's where we had to, you know, basically take up the mantle and run with it. Otherwise, we starve.
Yeah. Well, let me just from my recollection, as a boy, what I could now have come to know of African culture in our ancestry, in our forefathers' behavior, because I wouldn't have been able to identify it.
To actually experience it, yeah.
When I was experiencing it, I didn't know what I was experiencing. I couldn't identify it. I didn't have any knowledge to compare it with. To relate it to. You know, and I remember you talking about the importance of African history to our culture, and that's a key important point, that we can recognize through the knowledge of our African history, we can recognize the African culture in our behavior post-emancipation. And because of that, my limited knowledge of African history, I am now able to identify those things that when I was growing up was actually the African in us. Yeah. You know,
and that's our African heritage.
And that's our African heritage, and so that's what's significant. And then the other thing, and I don't want to get too far afield, was the value we placed on that African heritage. You see, we didn't put on the reason, in my view, the reason why we have lost those values is because we did not see those values as important enough to hold on to. The way European and American culture was proselytized or promoted to us through the mass media was a sales job. That this is better, white is better, black is bad. If you are barefoot, you are poor. If you only had 2 or 3 pairs of shoes and more than 1 pants and a fridge and a stove and nice furniture and carpet on the floor and so on, you are poor. And so we started accepting and believing those values. I went to school sometime barefoot. I played up and down, and we made ties, and I was never hungry one day. And I had a roof over my head and a place to sleep. And close away to go to church on Sunday, and I never thought of myself as poor. You know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you had a good, healthy view of yourself.
I had a good, healthy view of myself, and all the kids, all of us in the neighborhood, we came from the same, quote unquote, what we now know as class, the same social order, and we were fine until somebody come on the TV and say, you ain't got no shoes, you're poor. Yeah. You know, but to get back to the point, the spirit of doing for ourselves that we had is part of our African heritage. That's African in us. Yeah. Right? Helping each other, making sure that your neighbor had, if you had some extra and your neighbor needed, you give the neighbor that extra cup of flour that you didn't need at that particular time. Right? That's African. Right? When I went down the street and Miss Helen and Miss Baby and Miss Flossie asked me why I come in school, and them hear me, they see me misbehaving or getting in a fight, they give me a spanking, the village raising a child, that's African.
That's African,
You understand? The charity of making sure that Uncle Sam, when he came on the wharf, he had a strap of fish to go home with, he had to have no money. You understand? Giving to the less fortunate and make sure that everybody is taken care of. That's African, right? The importance of manners and respect. Good morning, good afternoon. We just talk about it now all the time, right? How people have come to the country, don't tell you good morning. They say, don't tell you howdy.
That's
watch
the tone.
Watch your pull in your face, don't tell you howdy.
Pass you straight.
Pass you straight, don't tell you howdy. Right? Well, the manners and politeness and saying good morning and greeting and yes,
and
ma'am.
Respecting the
yes,
elders.
And respecting, I'll get into that one, the next thing on the list. And respecting the elders and respecting women. And you know, that's African. The nurturing Yes, respecting the elders, respecting our women. That was African. The importance of education, of learning, of the importance of the women nurturing the family, taking care of the business, being the strongest when it comes to record keeping in paperwork. Women were the strongest when it comes to business management and nurturing the family, taking care of the money, and the men were the strongest in going out to work all day in the hot sun and bringing the money home and putting it on the table.
Yeah.
And as young boys, we were brought up to take care of our families. The man was supposed to be the provider. I see my father providing for me. I see Mr. Edward providing for his children, for Rita and them. I see Mr. Karras providing for Tim and them. I see Mr. Watkins providing for Larry and them. My father provided for me if he had to go St. Thomas, St. John to walk through the night, through the window, wherever he had to go to bring back $1. He was providing for his family. My mother was in the house making sure that the money lasts, that the socks them, instead of buying a new pair of socks, she repaired the socks. She repaired the underwear and make everything work.
Yeah.
You understand? That woman had a knack.
We learned how to take care of what we had.
A woman had a knack of making things work. We never known about a woman liberation in
feminist movement
in all them kind of thing. You see? So that was African. That come right out of our African history, our African culture, our African village. Men learning skills, the boys learning skills to build, the carpentry, the masonry, the boat building, the farming, the fishing, that's African. You know, the courting process.
And we touched on this last time when we sat down.
Yeah, the courting process. Going to the house and writing into the family and talking to the father and the parents about the relationship with the daughter and the son, the daughter and the families come together and make sure that the children had a good start. That's African. You know? So we had maintained post-emancipation a high degree of our Africanness without even knowing that it was African.
That's where it was from.
That was
well, they probably knew where it was from back then, because they know that the generation before them would have, you know, basically that's how they were trained and groomed. That this is how you live your life. This is how your priorities are supposed to be ordered. You make something of yourself, then you put
get your education,
then you talk about
skill.
wanting to have a family, so you find a mate, and you have to provide for them.
Yeah,
so it means having a job in some place to put out to live.
Having a skill to provide.
Yeah.
You know, and when I was growing up, within the environment, we were all entrepreneurs. Well, I should say our parents were all entrepreneurs. The fisherman was a businessman, the farmer was a businessman, the boat builder was a businessman, the contractor was a businessman.
The baker,
the baker was a businessman, the tailor was a businessman.
Yeah.
You know, all woman, because, you know, I mean, you never had a situation where the woman was restricted from doing any occupation. You know, so we came from a background of entrepreneurship, of work, of great, terrific work ethic, making our way, climb ourselves up from the ground.
Being resourceful. So whatever you had,
creativity,
you had to make do.
We were creative. Ingenuity, we were geniuses. Our ancestors were geniuses. We took, I mean,
even by today's standard, and that's what it boils down to, you know.
But you know, you take Fungi music, for example, right? And the history of the instrumental, not necessarily the musical content of the songs.
No, the development of Fungi is a good story.
Yeah, but the instruments themselves. You understand? Come out of the yard. The man pick up a piece of wood and a faring can and some nylon string and make a ukulele. You know, they take a piece of pipe and make it and make
it a flute. That's one of the things we learned.
Make a bathing pan and some stick and make it a bass.
Yeah, and that's interesting you say that, because it triggered the memory in class where we talked about the different cultural forms. So we talked about food, language, I think, not lifestyle, but we talked about things like the marriage and all of those things. So we learned the comparison. And one of the questions that we actually had as an assignment was, is Virgin Islands culture an extension of our African diaspora? Or is it a Creole or a mix? of African, Amerindian, and European, and to create something that's unique to itself. And you know, in my opinion, based on the readings that we did, I said it's a Creole. Virgin Islands culture is something that's unique. Yes, it has influences from African, European, and the Amerindians, but at the end of it, when it mixed up, it came up with something that is neither of them, you know, and that for me is where we really have something to take pride in once we understand what we came out of.
Well, yeah, but I think though, while I understand what you're saying, that African in us produce the dominant part of our behavior, right? And of course, the mixing of the Europeans and the Amerindians, and for the most part, the Amerindians. And what's interesting to me about when you talk about Amerindians, if you look at Amerindian, African, if you look at Asian and African and Indian, which is Asian culture, it's very difficult to separate, to draw a line.
Yeah.
You know, to draw a line. The clothes are similar, the foods are similar, the behaviors are similar, the religions are variation or derivatives of some of the African spirituality. And that's another thing. Our spirituality was that
was one of the other cultural forms.
That was African, and so we gravitated very easily towards religion.
Because we were religious people.
We were spiritual people, and anything to do with God and the divine, you know, that was
already a part of the life.
Innate. That was innate in us, and so it was easy to come into Africa, for example, or
when we got here, when our sisters got here, to convert them to Christianity.
To convert them to another religion. But even to come into the environment and be treated with kindness in the face of the hostility. You know, people say, you know, we like to say that our ancestors were cowards because, you know, the Europeans came in and we allow ourselves to be pick up and enslaved as if we went peacefully, you know. Well,
and that's a story in of itself. It never was like that.
It wasn't like that. We didn't go peacefully, but we were taken by surprise because of our spiritual nature, because of our loving, kind, giving nature. We lived in abundance.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the starvation and the deprivation that is constantly shown to us on television is a recent phenomenon manufactured out of colonization.
Post-colonial Africa.
Yeah, with post-colonial Africa. Yeah. You know, where the resources were taken out and distributed into Europe, and we were left basically as slaves.
You didn't benefit from
as slaves. We have not been benefiting from our resources. Africa is the richest continent on the planet. You know, so all of these things are the African in us, and unless we have been able to study and to go back into our African history. And the culture in Africa and the way our ancestors lived and existed and the practices they had, the rites of passage, which translated in the BVI, for example, young men coming out of school, learning a trade, becoming a man, following a certain order, as we spoke of just earlier, of being able to provide for the family and make that transition out of the parents' house into the community as a full-fledged, responsible, capable man.
Responsible adult.
A responsible adult. That's a rite of passage right out of Africa. So when you look into African history and you learn some of the things that happened with our ancestors during African time. And you look, and then you compare it to what we are doing, you begin to get a full understanding of how truly African we are. You know.
So then, let me go back to that one comment that was made then, because at the end of the day, the Caribbean is the African diaspora, which means we have a shared ancestry, shared traditions in a lot of things. I may call a sugar apple by another name from Barbados, but at the end of the day, we all are familiar with a lot of the same
But we do
things.
it all the time. Jamaicans say peas and rice, we say rice and peas, or vice versa. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah,
You know what
whichever
I'm saying?
one. Yeah.
Somebody put milk in the pea soup, somebody put sugar in the pea soup. Somebody do the pea soup without any meat, somebody put pigtail in the pea soup. You know, somebody make Johnny cake, somebody make doubles.
By different names.
You know?
So why then, we're going to pick this up after a commercial because we already on about a half hour, Mac. But it's interesting to me because a lot of what is being said, right, is talking about there's disharmony when it comes to our social relationships, and we blame it on being, well, you know, we have people here from throughout the Caribbean. But if we have a shared history, why is there so much focus on the small differences?
That's a hurtful thing.
Rather than the large common base that
That's
we're all on.
That's
So
a hurtful
if
thing.
somebody comes in from
It's
St.
a trick.
Vincent,
It's a trick.
and I believe
It's a
so.
trick. It's a trick.
But we're going to pick it up
It's a
after the
trick.
commercial
Yeah,
break.
it's a trick.
Welcome back. You're tuned in to the Vigilate Dialogues. I'm your host, Shaina Smith, and with me tonight I have my good friend, Edju En Ka, known as Cromwell Smith. And we're having a good conversation tonight, talking about African heritage and the impact on our culture and how we've moved away, it seems, from basically what, you know, this is our heritage. This is what we came out of. And we're going to have to talk about how we get back there just now. But we left off on the break talking about if we know the Caribbean diaspora, the Caribbean rather, is basically built on the African diaspora.
Yes.
So all of us come out of similar
All of
backgrounds,
us came from Africa.
right?
Yes.
So even if it was different tribes that went different islands, we more or less had
Yeah.
similar culture coming out of the continent.
Yes.
So then why, in terms of when we talk about the reason why we think we're losing our traditions, would we pinpoint the cause as being immigration of other Caribbean countries in? We ain't even talking about European or Asia, but assimilation of people who share a similar culture into our society as not being thing. And we made a comment on the break, so we're going to bring that up now. So that's where we're going to come back in.
Yeah. We don't never see European as having done anything at all to us. You understand?
They think that's a perception that's there.
I mean, we don't, when we talking about problems in the BVI, is island people who causing the problems. You understand?
And
We
even
don't
by
never-
that name, in terms of to call it,
and
as
that's
if
why-
we're a
that's why-
continent
that's
and
why-
they're from an island.
That's right. That's why I said it that way, right? That's why I said it that way, so to show, to say how ridiculous the whole thing is, right? But we never think on white people as having a role in none of the challenges that we are having.
I think some people do though.
Well, I'll be speaking generally.
Yeah,
Be speaking,
yeah.
of course, there are exceptions, right? I like to think I'm an exception.
Okay.
So, but we're speaking generally. So, what happened is that we are there's an economic component.
Well, that was driving everything, you
Yeah,
know.
there's an economic component of the division, the division strategy, as I like to call it, where we are made to feel that people, our Caribbean brothers and sisters, are usurping our entitlements. Virgin Islanders entitlements. And so they take in our jobs, they are successful, people are hiring them, and we can't we're being left out.
That's actually one of the comments that was there too, as far as expats getting better advantages and opportunities.
Right. And when we say expats, we're talking about Caribbean brothers and sisters. We ain't
Necessarily talking
we ain't
about
talking about European. We ain't necessarily talking about Europeans because like Europeans will come in. Europeans own the economy of the British Virgin Islands. I mean, you could slice it any way you want. The money that comes into the territory that you and I spend comes in the pocket of Europeans through European businesses. You know, and I dare anybody to come and dispute, to call up and dispute that fact. So they own the economy, but that's cool. Let us own something.
We should. You need to have a stake in this game.
No. But when we own something, we ourselves want to kill each other because we own something. You have too much.
I measure in your pocket.
You have too much. You know, the investment club is a bunch of greedy criminals. You know what I'm saying? The man who own Oil Bay
Necker
Island, them ain't greedy criminals.
And you station.
They entitled. They're supposed to have that. They're supposed to be millionaires. They're supposed to own their own.
So then this mentality goes all the way back to the plantation.
It goes all the way back to the plantation. This is what Dr. Jai DeGray calls post-traumatic slave syndrome, where the psychology of the plantation era remains with us up until the present day. And we ain't dealing with it. We don't want to hear it. As a matter of fact, I ain't saying nothing else about it.
But see, these are the things, and because we started touching on this stuff last time I was here, and it's something where it's like these hard conversations. If we want to have a better society, we have to have these hard conversations.
You need to have the hard conversation.
And we may not agree in terms of the source of certain things, but we definitely have to talk about it in order to come with a solution. Yeah. Because I find the American influence now came about rather than European, because we didn't get European media. We got American media.
Yes.
So therefore, as America go, so we got caught up in a tailwind. And definitely when they bought the Danish West Indies or the Danish Virgin Islands, you know, it came home to roost. Because now you're in the thick of U.S. history, and it's one thing they do. They promote their culture.
Yeah, their way of life. It's the way of life.
Yeah.
If you follow American way of life, you ain't following life.
And that's what was promoted across the globe.
But let's examine our Caribbean brothers and sisters from a cultural perspective. We believe in the same God, so we have the same spiritual reference. We eat the same foods. We like the same music. We wear the same type of clothes.
Similar upbringing.
Similar upbringing.
The boathouse, the cool pot, rock fire.
The manners that we were taught in the Biblia is the same manners that they were taught. The respect for elders is the same respect, the same. So all the things I mentioned about what was African, these brothers and sisters from other Caribbean countries were raised basically the same way. And when they come to the BVI, what is the difference? The difference is perhaps, except for those who speak a completely different language, the English-speaking Caribbean, the culture is more similar than that is different. Now, in our BVI quest to be different, to stand out, to be superior, to be modern. I don't know what the mentality is we're trying to achieve, right? We are focused on quote unquote uniqueness. Uniqueness is a cause for division. You understand what I'm saying?
It's an illusion, you know.
It's an illusion, and it wasn't being an illusion. It's a cause for division because instead of uniting of the majority of what we have in common, we divided with the uniqueness of what we call a culture of subtle differences. You know, and so we at each other. We used to say in the old time, why are we fighting for the crumbs? The man taking the whole pie.
Gone with everything.
Gone with everything. We got why he leave with the crumb behind and the pie gone. You look around the table thing on a pie, and all you doing everybody under the table on the ground fighting for crumbs because of the division. You see, so we don't know. There's no need for us to be fighting our African brothers and sisters. And see, this is the other trick that we focus on nationality as ethnicity. You understand
which isn't necessarily the case.
Because
we just talk about it. All of us are African diaspora.
A totally false illusion that because you're Jamaican, you're a separate race, or you're a separate ethnic group because you're Haitian. I mean, it's like, well, you know, I ain't black as Haitian. It's like you go to the States, well, I ain't African or West Indian. Or at one particular point in the Virgin Islands, we never call ourselves, we ain't from the West Indies. You know what I'm saying? The Virgin Islands is not in the West Indies. We something else.
And I you know, it's just more as you speak, the more it's amazing in terms of saying, looking across my experience, I say over the last 20 years of education and what I was taught and what you were exposed to in your environment that shape your thought process as far as how you view persons from other islands, or you know, when you see things from America, you want to have American style clothes, you want to have American devices in your house, because again, the marketing has done a very good job of telling you this is the better thing.
And you are better for it. You have improved in class.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know, superior. You know, I'm no better than you who got this little small fridge. I got big silver fridge.
Yeah, stainless steel.
Yeah, that's like this.
Forget you. Let's be specific.
That's like this, stainless steel. I know why this, I don't have none.
Instead of silver fridge. But again, going back to the, okay, so we're trying to filter this thing down. So we see where we kind of gone off track with the whole, the social dissonance. We can't get our comment together, because who is suffering at the end of the day is the children that are born of mixed heritage. So if they have, well, not even mixed heritage, mixed nationality.
Mixed nationality. You see where you got?
Because they say
it's in your mind.
No, well, I got defining how it is, because then we're thinking about saying the child is born to a mother who is from St. Kitts, but their father is Virgin Islander, you know, because that's not anything of their own choosing. So how do they now exist in a community that's so divisive?
But yeah, we're making it look like it's such a great big difference. You know, it's like,
and that they can embrace both cultures. Or
but there's no both cultures they embrace. There is no both cultures.
So you just erase everything right there.
Yeah, there's no both cultures. It's the same culture. It's the same culture with subtle variations.
The subtle variations.
Yeah, some little peculiarities. You understand?
And because of the history, because then each island might have their own history. That's probably what it is, you know.
Listen, it ain't no difference. We are behaving the same way. We have very similar belief systems, very similar value systems. We want the same thing. What has happened is that we have evolved now from Caribbean people from the African diaspora to Caribbean people practicing American and European culture. When the other Caribbean brother and sister come to the Virgin Islands, whatever changes they make is not changing towards a BVI culture that no longer exists. It's changing towards an American culture that the BVI has adopted.
And that's also one of the comments, you know, they said they rather follow the U.S.
And that's what it is. Now,
So
I'll tell you something now, you know, England is pissed off about it. I don't know if I should use the word pissed off on TV.
Well,
but England is angry. England is angry that the BVI in the British Virgin Islands is so close to American culture and not following British traditions.
We had become American, but that's not our fault. Again, they went.
And again, British culture and American culture have the same challenges that we're talking about. It's the same culture. It's the same culture. The same value, same behavior, just a little different accent.
Because that's one of the things where probably this generation or the generation now since, they don't understand America was a British colony at one point.
Exactly. So it's the same thing. They are one people. Now they recognize the greater similarities and commonalities, you understand, and they de-emphasize the subtle the subtle differences or peculiarities, and they are one people. So wherever a white man is, he's a white man. Even if he speaks French, then what they do is they create a situation. You ever see them at the United Nations?
Yeah.
They got little headphones on their ear, and when you speak, everybody understands in their language.
Yeah.
So they communicate with each other as Europeans and Americans, and they are one people. Even though they speak different languages, they have different nationalities, their ethnic group or their race is a white race. You understand? We don't have no race. You know, we have nationalities. We focus on nationalities, right? And we have relegated what we used to call ourselves black to now a color. So now you are no longer a black person, Shaina. You are a light brown person. I'm no longer a black person. I'm a brown person.
You're brown. Okay.
Yeah. So and I ain't African at all.
Yeah, that came out altogether.
Oh, that, yeah. Only
And
Africa
that's
on
one important point is sticking in there too as something I learned in class. Black wasn't something that Africans call themselves. Black is a label given to them by Europeans to differentiate against
and it
the
was a label that evolved over time from nigger to negro to black
yeah, finally get
to
African
American, you know, and to go to where we are now, which we are none of those things. You know, we are either American, Haitian, Jamaican, Vincentian, Kittian.
And I think national identity is still important.
Yes.
But I think in terms of looking at preservation of cultural traditions and heritage, it's definitely important that we put those aside for a minute and say, you know, guys, we focusing too much on the smaller differences rather than the bigger picture, and looking at the strength that comes with unity. You know, that you have people in the community, yes, they might have come from a different island or a different country, but if they're here to contribute and make the Virgin Islands better or make the society in which they come into better, then there has to be a process of assimilation rather than, you know, we're trying to figure out, you know, how to keep the Filipinos over here and how to keep the Jamaicans over there, and this amount of division, because it's not going to bode well. But we run out of time, right?
Let me say this quick. The foundation of the unity is to be found in our ancestral heritage.
The shared ancestral.
Yeah, the shared ancestry. That's if we focus on the shared ancestry, all of the other little divisions, artificial, I should call them artificial divisions, will fall away. Because then we'll be African people.
Yeah.
And no matter where we are, no matter what nationality we are, no matter religion we are, no matter the color of our skin, we will all be African people, just like white people is all white people, whether it's French, British, Italian. They have their common European ancestry, and they are Europeans, regardless of their nationality. We need to be Africans, regardless of our nationality.
Yeah, and that's key, because I see where now that probably factored into the lack of formation of the West Indian Federation that was attempted back in the 60s.
All attempts at unity is failing. Even CARICOM, the success that CARICOM should have, because of course we don't want to have freedom of movement, because we don't want the Jamaican or Kittian being able to come here and have what they want. Just like we don't want they don't want the Virgin Islanders to go there and do what he wants.
Entitled to the same.
Yeah.
Same
So we don't have that. We don't have that unity because we don't have that ancestral heritage foundation. It has been dissolved. We have evolved into a different culture, an alien culture, a different set of traditions and values that is alien to us as African people.
Yeah, and I think too, even when you look into the different countries, you know, everybody has their challenges to deal with, and it would be so much better if you're able to move forward as a united force.
Yes.
You know, in terms of shared resources, whether it's human resources, financial, ideas. You know, ideas is the capital now of this century, and we have to think.
Let me tell you something. Out of the 7 billion humans on Earth, the 75 to 80% of that 7 billion people are people of color. You understand? Living on the best land. The Caribbean and Africa, the Southern Hemisphere is the best land on the planet. You understand? Whether it's east or west, south of the equator is the best land on the planet. They got the most resources, they got the most everything, right? And the most of the people that inhabit this area are people of color. But yet, we are so divided that the 20% of the world population from the northern hemisphere are able to come in
and control
and take the resources at will, bribe off a few of us, turn us against one another, and take everything what we have, while we are the lowest rung of the totem pole of the global economic ladder. And whenever you look at us, we are projected as starving, needy people who live on the richest part of the planet, and have the majority.
As if that's the only part of the story.
Yeah. So unity is the key to our success.
So, and that's a good segue to the next question, because we're going to touch on this and then we're going to have to pick this up, so you definitely got to come back. Where does leadership factor into this?
Well, leadership is everything. Is everything. But the thing is that what kind of leadership can come out of a culture that we are speaking of? What kind of Afrocentric heritage, what kind of Afrocentric leadership, what kind of leadership could come out of a culture where you think of yourself as inferior or dependent or needy, and you don't have the love of self and kind
and a national identity
and a national and ancestral identity to guide you to say, I am looking out as a leader. I am looking out for the best interest of my people wherever they are, and to have identified yourself with a people and a land. You know what I'm saying? Where is that leadership going to come from out of that culture?
That's true.
And this is where we are challenged. And this has been the challenge for centuries. And this is why we are still at this point. No, I don't want to make it sound like, like we are a bunch of invalids and a bunch of idiots and nothing has happened.
None positive
has happened. It'll turn out something that way, right? We have
clarify.
Yeah, we have made significant gains globally, socially, politically, economically, and we are making more gains, and we continue to make gains. So the process is a long process, and that we are going through, and as you can notice, we are having some successes. The alliances we form with other people of color is going to be a key to the success of our future, in my view.
Going forward, yeah.
Going forward. The education that we focus on, the values.
What's taught, yeah.
Yeah, the values that we focus on. If we start focusing on making sure our boys and girls are having a quality education and being prepared
for life.
For life.
Not just a job.
Yes, and also developing with that education, developing that sense of national and ancestral pride. I think more importantly is that ancestral.
In terms of knowing who you are,
where you came from,
and who you come out of it.
Who you come out of, and identifying like people.
Yeah.
Identifying and loving people of similarity.
I find that if you're going to appreciate who you are, just on an individual level, you appreciate who you are and know who your family is, and go all the way back. My great-grandfather was this one, and he used to build boat, and they sailed from Cuba to Trinidad. It shapes your self-esteem just as an individual. So imagine now you take that, you elevate it to the societal level, and we say, listen, we are people who we are ingenious, we are resourceful, we take a tree and turn that thing into a sloop in a rush. And understand me, the Vigilate sloop was a unique design in the Caribbean. Okay? So it had to be something we had going on for ourselves. But when you have people come in, and then it's almost as if they get brainwashed. So you start telling our leadership,
but that's exactly what it is.
You have to be dependent on us for that next evolution of your development.
Yes.
And at no point we ever come off of that mindset or that perspective to say, no, at some point we have to be able to fend for ourselves and do what we have to do.
And you see it manifesting in our fear of being independent. And we actually came from being independent, because when we were left to fend for ourselves,
call it that. We had somebody just watching over us for a second.
Yeah,
but they were pushing for our interests.
He was just a caretaker.
Yeah, we had to push and promote for our own interests.
We clad ourselves. Some of our fathers still got a dot under their fingernail. We clad.
Match up Main Street and them,
We clad ourselves out of the dot or the BVI and build what it is.
You see today.
We have. So that understanding that from that perspective,
we have to build that appreciation.
You understand? Should have given us a sense of ancestral pride in ourselves, that as people of African descent, left stranded on a little group of islands, were able to do what we have done. That's where our pride should come from. That's where our confidence in our ability to succeed. So we could say to England, to hell with you, if you got to go back to coal pot, you're not going to enslave us again. You know what I'm saying? Because we'll go back to coal pot and we'll come right back and
Come right
get
back
gas
again.
stove.
Yeah. Straight
You know
back
what I'm
again.
saying? We'll come straight back again and we get gas stove.
As long as the people believe that they can
And
do
as long
it.
as we believe that we could do it, but that's the thing. We no longer believe that we could do it.
Yeah, we got to
We no
pull
longer
that out.
believe that we could do it.
Because that's the thing where you know, we were looking at the different aspects of it as far as national pride. And it started to dawn on me. I said, this ain't so much about national pride. This is about the identity of our people and knowing our history and understanding our heritage and what we came out of. To be able to say, yo, I'm a Virgin Islander to the bone. I believe in us and being able to do what we have.
That we are able to do anything.
Anything. And nobody can come in, and even if they call me small island or they criticize, it doesn't affect me because I have a good self-esteem.
My mother says nothing you can do. My mother says, Punch, it ain't nothing you can do, my
And
son.
she push you out there.
She
push out the
do
nest.
anything you want to do. You think you can do.
Yeah, and
There's
we
no such thing as can.
Yeah, and we had, and that's something where the whole thing of transitioning that into the next generation, I think, is where we fall down. But we are completely out of time, so you have to come back because we may pass question 8. We still have 9 and 10. But you've been tuned into the Vigilante Dialogues. I want to thank everybody for being in. I'm sure you found this conversation very exciting. You can catch it on Sundays at 6 p.m. and back here on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Thanks for joining in and watching the change in conversation for a better Virgin Island.